Hello, Barbara. How are you doing? Welcome to the Wellness Lab podcast. And today we're going to talk about cultivating positive work culture. So, welcome and happy to pass the microphone over so you can give us a quick intro of your personal professional career, and then we'll dive into the conversation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So excited to be here and starting this great conversation. It's a beautiful day. I'm located in Ottawa, but my work story. So I always start by saying I am a clinical social worker. That has been my passion and my career it's also my secret sauce. So it's secret because I love people. I love connecting. I have an ear and a deep understanding of systems and the importance of using that sort of clinical ear to influence business and business decisions and leadership, how I lead. So I'm a clinical social worker. I have worked most of my career in the area of workplace mental health, and I worked in probably the world's largest behavioral health company. I've traveled around the world. I worked globally, an enormous, giant company. The buildup was living through 9 or 10 acquisitions and learning about acquisitions because I work with workplaces. I've been exposed to thousands and thousands of work cultures. And now I have the experience in this stage of my career to be an entrepreneur. I started and launched Avora Well 2 years ago. I did that with a long-term, long-standing and trusted and loved colleague, Michelle Arsenault. And this week is really our second year anniversary of Avora Well.
Congratulations.
So I've done the full range of different work cultures. I've worked from startups to growing into a full enterprise, large scale global enterprise, and I've worked from being in direct delivery positions, but also moving up the ranks to become a senior executive and to be the chief clinician of one of the largest behavioral health companies in the world. So a very exciting career. I feel very grateful for that.
Yes, kudos to you, Barbara. Sounds amazing, all your professional development and the contributions, the achievements you have managed up to this day. So congrats and celebrating with you on this week on your second anniversary. And I'm sure you're gonna go even farther, and especially helping others. That's one of the amazing things that is relevant to share, to let others know how you are helping, empowering people to obviously build, connect, and then succeed together, right, as a team.
Mhm.
One of the
Mhm.
key things that I find great on your work and the way you manage or go into corporations, let's say, is how to create connection, empathy, because far from obviously trying to achieve some targets, metrics, revenue from a company that it's so important, also being part of a healthy place to work and probably creating a sense of community on, as you mentioned, and probably you will say more about it given that you're the expert, taking some time to make your team members, your colleagues to feel appreciated, to show them you care. It's really important.
Right. Good. Good. And it's also, I mentioned it was the second year anniversary of Avora Wellbeing. It's also Workplace Bullying Awareness Week. And that is also a global movement. So, when we talk about how to build and sustain a positive work culture and how that elevates and helps businesses perform, you need to look at the flip side and say, okay, what do you not want to be and what are you striving to be, and have a full understanding of that continuum. And as I introduced myself, I should also say in my journey, in my story, I have worked in very positive workplaces with outstanding leaderships who have been, beloved and my mentors. And I have also worked in very difficult work cultures, and some of them have been, cliche toxic, unhealthy, competitive, aggressive, and I've worked with leaders who have actually been bullies, and I've been personally impacted and had to go through and stand up for myself and address bullying issues through my career. And so there's a continuum, and even in a healthy culture, there can be pockets of behavior that's unacceptable and unwell. And even in a very difficult and toxic culture, there can be pockets of teams that are striving despite the leadership and the workplace culture. So there's a lot of nuances in this, how to build a positive work culture. And I think it's important to recognize that. What we're striving for is a foundation that is based on, both I come with two different lenses, the operational reality. I was an operational leader. I understand complexities of driving to targets and delivering with key performance measures and the logistics of running a business, but then also how to inspire the workforce, your people, and connect with your people and connect with your customers at a level that says, we are doing things with purpose. This company brings value, and we are doing things with purpose, and how important both the head and the heart need to connect in a successful business. So, when we think of positive work cultures, it starts at the leadership level, and I think the thread, and this is a clinical term, that thread that goes throughout the organization to every single touch point, it is at the leadership level where the tone and the accountability and the culture is developed and sustained and grows. So
Thank you. Thanks for providing those insights. And I love this lens that you put together, because there's like this operational side of things, but also the human side of things plays an important role. As you mentioned, throughout my corporate career, because now as I am an entrepreneur, but on my corporate career, I faced great leadership, which helped me drive, excel, but also this type of leadership that was really negative and didn't do any good for myself. That was my wake up call, probably a good way. A good thing that happened out of it is like I decided to just do my own thing, and I'm happy. But it's a great project, a great idea to help corporations, to help businesses find a way to say, okay, at this level from the top down, that's how you need to put hands on some work and make sure the workplace is a safe place to be, to work, and it's somewhere anyone that joins enjoys. And obviously, if you're happy, if you're thriving, you're going to make big contributions, and that may be something you perfectly know on how it can impact the productivity and other things. And probably if you want to add anything to that, feel free. If not, we can also talk about why this matters, what's the reality. We can talk about Canadian numbers, as I know you're here in Canada.
Yeah, I think that sense of purpose and social connection are well-being measures that are imperative for longevity. There's a lot of research around that, but they're also imperative for the workforce and the workplace. And when I think back, why am I an entrepreneur? I had a thriving career. I was excited and loved my job. I love the people I worked with. I love the work that I did, and I continue to do that. I did reach a tipping point where I realized that the culture that I was working in was no longer healthy. They no longer had the same values that I needed to feel connected and respected and thrive in my job. I won't say too much about that other than there was a tipping point, and the tipping point came down to culture. This was no longer a place that was safe for me. I was no longer comfortable seeing how others were being treated, and there was no way in my view of the world that I could influence a positive change anymore. So I had to make a decision for myself. And I just want to say, making that decision, and I think it's very important before we get into what makes a positive culture, is, lots of people stay in roles and in workplaces that they're very unhappy in. And a lot of that is influenced by workplace bullying and harassment. And that's a big statement I'm making. When I often speak in front of crowds, and I talk about this topic, I say, who here has witnessed bullying and harassment? And I can tell you 100% of the time, 100% of people have had some experience and exposure. And when I ask the next question, true enough, right? You've done it in your career. When I ask the next question is, who has directly been impacted? I can tell you 75% of people will tell you they have. And yet 15% of those people will formally take action, and 25 are on a decisional sort of, should I do or should I not? So it's an enormously big impact, and it costs the organization a lot of money. It costs an organization a lot of time. It drains talent. It reduces productivity. It shows up in absenteeism and termination and training and turnover. It is an enormously big cost, and some of it's easy to measure and some of it's more difficult to measure. But it is very naive for an organization to believe that it doesn't impact them, and it's not an investment they should make. People will hold on to their jobs, for various reasons. Livelihood, it's hard to find another. There's enough good here. They don't reach that tipping point. So, but don't think as an organization that's not having an impact. And I've watched many an organization spend a lot of money protecting bad leadership,
Yes.
unchecked leadership, paying out packages, paying out enormous costs at a financial and legal point of view and a disability point of view, and still maintaining a negative work culture, even when the consequences are very clear. They're very clear. But people stay because it's hard. And not everybody is at a stage of life where they can risk any of their, the financial impact. So having, said all of that, there are lots of ways to create good culture. And there's lots of ways that organizations can shift their culture. And as I said earlier, it starts at the top. Leadership modeling is key to any organization's success. Everybody is watching. Don't ever think as a leader that you are not on at all times. And the behaviors you show every day, formally or informally, are being watched, and they set a standard to how others will treat each other and what's acceptable, what you can get away with. And if you let things linger, they will cause more pain down the road. And so I always say, address things in real time. So, I think that is key for any cultures, and to make sure not all leaders have the same values or the same communication skills. Invest in your leadership, invest in all your leadership hierarchy and below. Some of the worst bullying in a workplace can be lateral violence to each other. And most of it starts in a hierarchy down. But don't underestimate the lateral violence in organizations. So do you want me to continue to start talking about leadership, or do you want to pause for a minute and ask me to make sure I'm on track with some of the things you're interested in talking about?
Yeah, so it has been great. Lots of information and an eye opener as well on the last portion that you mentioned, that it's not only from top to bottom. And the other thing that is important, just to make the point, it's easier, you already have the proper persons on the right seat, building a business and working together. So it takes more time and effort working on changing if these type of environment, one, and the other one, if people are unhappy or leaving, then the energy and the flow within an organization is just going to, okay, we have to hire, we have to retrain. And then if there's it's not a thriving culture, that's going to keep happening over and over, and there's no way also to grow.
Mm-hmm. I think the in hindsight, what I've seen happen in a number of organizations is they get tripped up. They have to decide, this person seems so capable technically and they know so much. If we lose them, it will have a major impact on our business. That core knowledge, that operational excellence, they're so influential, and they don't understand the drain. Yes, they may be a great subject matter expert, but that is actually something you can replace and learn. But if they are not, if their behavior is unchecked and they're aggressive and they're dismissive and it affects the growth. It immobilizes an organization. And I had many years ago, I had this leader. He was terrific, and he turned to me and said, "I don't care how smart that person is. They cause too much damage and too much drama. This is unacceptable." And they were very definitive. No, he was a social worker he was a great leader and he was also a social worker, but he had that insight. So sometimes we get tripped up as organizations to say, oh, can we replace that knowledge? And, oh, well, maybe we can change that behavior. And sometimes you can. Coaching can help, but sometimes you can't. Most of the bullies I've come across are serial bullies. They've bullied others. This is not their first time at it. And often people don't realize, because when you're being attacked, you sometimes think it's me. But you start to share your stories and you quickly realize it's others. It's others. I wrote a post in my LinkedIn 7 months ago, and it was a powerful post for me. It was I had someone in mind when I was writing it. It was someone who I left long before that person left, and but I had worked with that person for years and years in different cultures. And the story I just told you is the story where my one leader said, call it a day with that person. Well, they ended up in an acquisition again, reappearing. So not to say too much, but when I found out that person had actually left my legacy organization, I felt, you know what? I'm going to write something. And I called it Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead. It was just when Wicked, the movie, was coming out. And I was writing it with something in mind for myself. But the response to that one post was amazing. I had over 12,000 people read it. I had hundreds of phone calls, and I had many comments. Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead. Now, interestingly enough, the people who I thought would sort of recognize this story, and I wasn't trying to out anyone or make that person feel bad. I actually, had some heart for that person. But the people who responded were totally different than I expected, and they came from all over. And what I realized is the relief and this character and this behavior perpetuates many cultures. So that was just a side story where I thought, oh my gosh, this is such a big issue, and that behavior in person exists in many organizations. And the longer an organization delays to address that behavior, the more harm it causes for the organization and the people they work with. So that's just
amazing. Thanks, Barb. I think you are totally on point on saying, like, if leadership has these bad behaviors happening, then it's it cannot be normalized, because that's not the right culture that needs to be instilled within a workplace. So I don't want to dive in more into the details, but let's talk more about what creates this positive workplace. What are key things that you might want to mention?
Yeah, and I can tell you sort of the core competencies, and then I have a couple of stories. I like to tell stories. So I think transparency and communication. We talked about leadership modeling, but real-time communication that is constructive and positive and specific. And I think in this day and age, more and more of that is needed. I think the generations that are emerging into the workplace are accustomed to instant and real-time communication. So that is imperative. Transparent transparent communication. Not everything I say is easy to listen to. And I think as a business leader, I'm a driver. I move fast. I've been accused of acting very fast. But being clear with people and being specific and being kind. You can give and deliver some information that's hard to receive, but you can be respectful and kind. And so learning really how to be a transparent and careful communicator and to build that muscle is incredibly important. Empathy and connection. Slow down. Spend time knowing who you're working with and why you're working together. Connection. And in this day and age, we're going in and out. We're trying to decide, are we a hybrid workplace? Are we everybody back to the office? Do that with intention. Do it with purpose. Build connections and encourage connections. Understand who and what is going on. Nothing's more valuable to our employee. And you don't need to know everything about their private life. Let's just be clear. People are entitled to have privacy, but also just say, hey, I see, you look happy today. I hope you're having a good day. Or when they tell you something, embrace that. Get to know your people, build a connection. That is invaluable. And recognize their skills. The recognition and gratitude, I cannot speak to that enough. And again, the more you do it, the easier it comes, and be authentic. I am never the smartest person in the room, or sometimes I am, but not always. And recognizing that, being humble, welcoming, creating that psychological space where people are welcome to confront you in a respectful way or bring in a new idea, and then lay that idea out and explain what happens to it. People want to know it's been received, it's been welcomed, and they want to know if it's going to continue. And I often say, what, there are so many good ideas, I only can pick 2. But that doesn't mean I didn't value and love that idea or that we can use it later. And sometimes I'll be in a conversation with intentionality and I'll say, I need to stop because what you said, I want to underscore it. I loved it. That was so helpful. And it recognizes that good ideas come, and it also helps people, be lifted up. Psychological safety, I talked a little bit about it, but allowing a culture that people can challenge each other and know that is safe and will be respected. And that's modeling. That's just key modeling. One of the things that I think I'm going to say this clearly is gratitude. Appreciation, respect, and gratitude. And if you can cultivate that in your workplace, that's imperative, and it really helps lift people up. When I left my job and started, deciding, okay, what am I going to do next? I had a period of time where, I probably took a year off just to figure out what I wanted to do. And in my first month after I resigned, I thought I didn't get some of the goodbyes I needed to close out that really long career I had at this wonderful, at this company that I had many wonderful relationships to. And I sat down every day for 1 month, and I wrote 3 messages out through LinkedIn, actually, to people who I really wanted to thank and appreciate. Some of them were peers. Some of them were, mentors. Most of them were people that I just did work with collaboratively, cross-departmentally, or they were at early stages, or they had worked in my corporate structure, my hierarchy. And most of what I wanted to do, and that was just to say to them, it was a pleasure working with you. You were so skilled. These are the specific things we did. And if you ever need help in your career path, please, please, please call me. I will give you a reference. I will help you prepare, because that was in my heart. It was unfinished business. I was doing it just to say goodbye to people for that purpose. What I got back was, it brought me to tears at times. It was so much appreciation. I really, people said, what can we do to help you? It wasn't what I was looking for, but what I recognized in that exercise is, one, people need that. It feeds their soul and keeps them connected. And it's your brand. You as a leader have a brand. You as an employee and as you have a brand, and that transcends past one work culture to another. And so, I think, the type of culture you build the type of individuals you cultivate all collectively create that positive work culture. So appreciation and acknowledgement feeds productivity and empowers people to be creative and do their best work. So,
Totally.
yeah.
Sometimes, as you mentioned, not everyone has the chance to be acknowledged, or ideas will not maybe go through because there's so
Mhm.
many things happening. But having the appreciation and to know you are valued, your work is being seen at some level, it's always worth the time. And as you mentioned, like this exercise you did is amazing, and I will invite anyone to show their appreciation, even though they do it once in a month. It's okay, but I love that. It totally resonates. I recall I did it with my team, maybe it was last year, and I did a personalized note to each and every one. And that's for me a reminder. I'm going to put some time before the end of the week, and I'm going to do it because I know they're doing a great effort, they're trying their best. And if they are, maybe if they are not doing their best lately, that also helps encourage and to just like show them you care and you are like looking and you are there as well, not only in a okay, just produce work and that's it, right? So creating this connection and making them feel valued is also a great thing to do. So thanks for that, Barb.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Just to go on the opposite side of that, I talked about, the relief an organization has when a toxic leader leaves. When a toxic leader leaves, and people are really watching in the culture at all times. And even, I was saying that often people, stay in a workplace even though they're very unhappy. I think it's naive and people are blindsided by how much the culture is witnessing at all times and how many people are bystanders and injured by observing. And I think that is always important to be mindful of. Like, this is just not an isolated team. And so most people, there's the culture you think you have as a leader above the line, and then there's the below the line. And below the line is there, and you have to really attend to it. You have to keep your ear to it. And you're very naive as a leader if you don't go deep and get to understand what's the core messaging below, the things, the people not speaking up in meetings, or people not bringing forward ideas, or how come no one tells me this? Understand why.
Thank you. Thanks for that. And well, another thing, I know it's getting close to the time to wrap it up. I'm loving all the stories, all the knowledge you're sharing with us. So really, I'm thankful for having you today. But I would like to know if there's any thoughts you want to share, any challenge to others to work on and obviously improve the workplace.
Yeah. Um, you know, the work is evolving very, very quickly. Every year I sit down in November and I think, okay, what's my forecast? What's the crystal ball? What are the trends we're seeing? And economic uncertainty is at the mindset of everyone. It's really affecting organizations. We have to be mindful that it's harder for people to make choices around the work. That's sort of on the horizon as a trend. Return to work mandate, in my city, lots of employees are having to go back 5 days a week. This is an opportunity to build connections, but if you just have people sitting in seats, and those seats, the real estate is too small for everyone to be back, it can cause a lot of cultural disruption, and not in a positive way. So really think a bit about, as you ask people to come more and more into the office, how to do that with intention. Get some help, think outside the box. There's lots of things you can do. We're in a monumental shift with AI, and this is an area you work in. There are tons of efficiencies, but again, data is only as good as the data you put in. Like the content is only as good as the quality of what they get to work with. So creativity is still so key for optimizing AI, and it will have enormous potential and impact on the workplace, and it will be interesting to watch that. There, we're in a strange time where we see everyday bad culture and bad leadership every day in social media and on television and in the news. And I worry, oh my gosh, will this affect the leadership tone? How will this impact when we see name calling and gaslighting and truth telling? It's a very disruptive thing to experience, but I think we have to center ourselves and say, these are the things we have control of. I have control of my space, how I want to work, and then, move that forward. And I'll bring us back to, this is the second anniversary of Avora Well-being. Michelle Arsenault, my partner, and I have worked a long time together. We took risks together throughout our whole career. We were great collaborators. We have very different styles and we have different clinical interests, but they are very complementary. We have really started with a vision, and then we've been trying to stay very close to it, is that we want a positive workplace where people can collaborate and that we do good work and that we are open to developing and getting good feedback. And I think establishing that type of work culture is, we feel very passionate about, and we've been careful about cultivating the type of work we do and also who we work with. We've moved into a space in mental health where there are some significant gaps, complex mental health. We do a lot of training on workplace culture and coaching for people leaders. And, we're sort of playing in the area that we both feel very inspired about. So it's been exciting. It's not easy, and this as well. And my authentic self says, I'm not always the best marketer or sales staff. I don't have the full range of skills, and I've been we have been so lucky that we've had lots of people lifting us up on our journey as entrepreneurs. You cannot be an entrepreneur on your own. You need others, and so we've been able to take our brand, our Michelle Arsenault and Barbara Veder brand, and really have been so fortunate to collaborate with amazing people. So I come, to this conversation saying, trying to model that appreciation and respect for others' skills are so key to business success. So.
Thank you, Barb. I totally find that connection, or I feel the same way. Like, respect in every type of relationship is foundational. So having respect, connecting with others, communication, the trust that we can build, it's only one of the key things that are part of those foundational pieces in any relationships. And then in the workplace, there's these components. And as you say, AI, as you mentioned, I do AI. I believe, or what I do for a living has to do and relates with AI. But I'm also a big proponent that it's there for us as a tool that will help us elevate our knowledge, our reach in many ways. But there's these soft skills that cannot be replaced. So it's totally the way that I see it. And it will be, if it's used for good, will be great for our advantage, but it's not something that will just take over, because there's so much things that we as humans have that we can make different, unique, and obviously, as you mentioned, like being like showing our gratitude with others can make just a big difference in the life of anyone. So thanks, Barb. I appreciate having you today, and well, excited to see where you and Michelle get. I'm sure you'll go farther, and I'm just excited to see how many people you can help reach and help change the culture, the environment in businesses, corporations, because I know there's a big need for that. So I appreciate it, and all the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.